we're in this mode of siblings turning around and calling out other siblings. Multiple people have sent me this video, and I know it bums people out, but I have a retort to the point that's being made here. So I'm going to try and not make this about Jimmy Dore and his problems, but I'm going to make it against the argument. Why would I not push back against this? One of the most exciting, electric, competent politicians that we have on the left, who more importantly has been organizing, has been creating caucuses before she's even elected, right? Going around and creating solidarity amongst those people in the Democratic Party who are to the left of where the mainstream of the Democratic Party is. And building solidarity, helping people getting elected, promoting, raising money, promoting ideas.
Corporate.
Now, I'm not saying that these people are, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is above criticism. No. We should always critique our politicians. But we should do so based upon the votes and the issues that they promote, and give them space to create power for themselves. And look, if AOC came out and said, let's say in the context of Palestinian rights, like, I don't believe that Palestinians deserve any rights, I would have a problem with that. And I would say that.
And we have been trying to hold her accountable on some of these issues.
Of course.
But in a nice way.
Well, it's not just in a nice way. It's in a way that is productive, right? Because the whole point is not so that we like her. The whole point is so that we get a government that functions in a way that we want.
She has the power and the base to do what she set out to do.
That's the point of politics. The point of politics is not for all of us to sit here and feel good about who we support or what. It's nice when that happens, but that's not the point of this. That's the point of junior high school. To have your clique be your clique. So
that's
with that in mind,
subtitle of our show.
Yeah.
Have your clique be your clique.
Exactly.
On the Majority Report.
Here is Jimmy Dore bringing up what is one of the most ridiculous, ill-informed. Play the video.
And I said Cynthia Nixon, who called him a liar on the debate, quit lying, she told him. And now I wonder if she's going to is she going to tell all the progressives to vote for the Democrats' version of Trump, which is Andrew Cuomo?
Pause it. And so the question is Cynthia Nixon going to tell Democrats to vote for Andrew Cuomo? I don't know if she is. I think she's going to stay on the WFP line, the Working Families Party line, because they need 50,000 votes to make sure that they maintain their line position. But nevertheless, continue.
And nobody can expect her to do that. But watch this. You think it's even worse than that? You guys ready for this? Watch this.
What I also look forward to moving forward is us rallying behind all Democratic nominees, including the governor, to make sure that he wins in November.
She's a Democrat, so she has to tell everybody that Andrew Cuomo is the answer.
Pause it. In addition to her not telling everybody that Andrew Cuomo is the answer, what she's telling people is that Andrew Cuomo will be better than the Republican.
She endorsed Cynthia Nixon.
Of course. But there's only two choices on the ballot, folks, of anybody who's going to win. It's either the Republican or the Democrat in this governor's race. I don't know if there's a third or fourth party people, but I got news for you. They're not going to win. 1 million Democrats out of the 1.5 that cast votes for governor voted for Andrew Cuomo. She doesn't have to do anything. She will not lose her position. She will not lose her candidacy if she says, and people should not vote for Cuomo. They should vote for the Republican, or they should vote for someone else and split the votes. You know what would happen if she does that? She can do it, but it would cut into her ability to actually do real things for real people. Not people who want to sit around and feel good about themselves, and that's the agenda. Her agenda is not to make people feel good about themselves. Her agenda is to get specific issues passed through Congress so that they are executed and the American people enjoys them. And there is no theory whatsoever, certainly doesn't come from this video, but I challenge anybody to give me a theory that shows how AOC can achieve more progressive change by coming out and saying at this point, in the lead up to the general election, don't vote for the Democrat at the top of the ticket.
Also, she said this in response to a question about it. Like, she's not out there campaigning with him at every step.
I think
course
it's
not.
really important to remember that Andrew Cuomo is our savior. He's the greatest politician, arguably, of the 21st
She said
century.
even Cuomo, right? In
Right.
that clip.
Yeah, even Cuomo is amazing. Exactly. Because I'm a Democrat now. And
All right, just
therefore
play
a
it back and then
corporate
listen to more.
Nominees, including the governor, to make sure that he wins in November.
Yes, including the governor.
She's a Democrat, so she has to tell everybody that Andrew Cuomo is the answer. Do you see what the problem is with progressives trying to take over the Democratic Party? Do you see the problem?
Yes, I see one of the problems, that they are given no room to do even platitudes, to do even the most basic hitting and bunting in terms of building their own political base. Like making an enemy, a public enemy of Andrew Cuomo helps progressives get Medicare for all. How? Making an enemy of Andrew Cuomo, this is after she already endorsed Cynthia Nixon in the primary. But going out and saying you prefer a Republican to win than a Democrat. Now, there's two options. One, she has no ability to make that happen. Or two, she does have an ability to make that happen by coming out, right? If she makes that happen and there's a Republican in the governorship of New York State, how is that helpful to getting any of the proposals that we are hoping for come to fruition?
New
Any of them.
Yorkers that
Any
don't
of
have
them.
health care will wake up.
Any of them.
They'll wake up, Sam.
We're looking at New York now with an opportunity, largely in part because of her, to actually have a Democratic state Senate and a Democratic state assembly. And they need a governor who will sign these things. Andrew Cuomo will not sign them in the way that Cynthia Nixon would have, but he's going to sign them a lot better than a Republican would.
You know what else also really stands out to me about this is, let's even indulge in a fantasy scenario that somehow.
All right, well, let me finish my point.
Sorry,
here.
go ahead.
So the other thing is that AOC cannot influence the outcome of the election. That she just says, don't vote for Andrew Cuomo, and alienates the 1 million people who voted for Andrew Cuomo in the primary, never mind the other millions. Now, no one has talked about what a bigger crap stain Andrew Cuomo is in New York State over the past 7 years than I have. I challenge anybody who is not active in New York politics, who doesn't do that, like on any medium, who has maligned Andrew Cuomo with very good reason, more than I. But the fact of the matter is, he's better than a Republican. Even the Republicans understand this dynamic. We just need someone to sign it, to sign the legislation, particularly now. And the idea that she has no ability to influence the outcome, it's all signaling. That's what is wanted here. Billy said that Jenny's one of the cool kids, and she's not. And so now I don't like Billy.
Exactly.
Well, I'm looking at the Nixon Cuomo results, and Brooklyn went for Cuomo. So, like, her constituents, a lot of them voted for Cuomo. So if she starts going on just bomb throwing, like,
But
Jimmy
what's the
Dore
value of it? Like,
Well,
what's
that's actually
what's the
that's
point?
another thing that
Like-
always
like, it's
misses in
in-
this analysis is actually that, and sometimes you see it with some people who follow characters like this on social media. They do start to attack essentially the Democratic base, because the thing that is inconvenient for this analysis is a lot of normal, regular, everyday Democratic voters who are going to need to be your allies, even in your greatest fantasy scenario of a third party, vote for people like Andrew Cuomo. And to basically just say that they're all just sheep or morons or their perspective should be dismissed is actually the much more toxic subtext. Because even on the low level, like, whatever, take your whack at AOC. Sure, maybe you're upset at her for whatever. But the larger message of, well, it's obviously all these mouth-breathing idiots that voted for Cuomo or are excited about Andrew Gillum. What are you saying about whole swaths of people you need to engage with and respect? It's pretty disgusting.
It's vote shaming from another angle.
Well, it's who is. I mean. Well, look. I don't think there's anything wrong with vote shaming. The issue is the issue is what is going to empower this politician who has an agenda that you subscribe to? What is going to empower her? If Andrew Cuomo runs for president, is it going to be more powerful that she said, I voted for him as governor over a Republican, but he should not be our nominee, than vice versa? I mean, these are all basic. These are just like basic, rudimentary. This is about power. This is about how you get you fulfill agendas, not about, I don't like you because you said a nice thing about something. And it's not even saying a nice thing about it. It's saying, I think a Democrat is better than a Republican. And if someone wants to debate that, I'll have a debate with anybody on the left about that. And I will debate anybody who articulates a perspective that's different from that. But continue with it.
There's more.
Oh, yeah.
A, it's never going to happen, and B, they get co-opted.
She's co-opted.
I don't know. Am I making too much out of this stuff?
Yes.
That was hard to listen to. I mean, that 10 seconds was hard to hear. It really was.
Really? You couldn't just wait a month? You couldn't wait until maybe November 1st to
All right,
throw
pause
your...
it. Now, let me explain why you wouldn't wait till November 10th to do this. Because if you're going to do it, you do it at a time. Well, first of all, she was probably asked the question. But you're going to do it at a time where it doesn't make you look like you're a Johnny-come-lately. You just do it because that's where one of the sources of your power comes from, the Democratic Party. And she's trying to leverage that power to do good things. So if you're going to do it, you do it early. Because if you're going to do it and you know you're going to do it, you do it early. And the idea that AOC can leverage anything from Andrew Cuomo at this point is moronic. Continue.
Support behind this guy.
Why?
who has
What's the difference?
gazillions
What's
and
the
gazillions
difference?
of-
What's the
Exactly.
difference? Well, no, I'm asking you.
Well, for me, it's like, why do people have to keep endorsing these Democrats that are corporate tools? Why does she have to hurry up?
I'm asking what's the difference between now and November 1st?
Well, I was hoping that she would push him without giving support.
So this is exactly right, Steph. She got nothing for this. Like Cynthia Nixon, like some people were saying, well, maybe Cynthia Nixon will get Andrew Cuomo to admit or to agree to sign on a single payer if it gets passed, and then she'll endorse him. Or maybe she'll get something, and then nothing. They got nothing from Andrew Cuomo. Nothing.
Okay. Trying to get in the general election for AOC, trying to get something from Andrew Cuomo at this point would be like pushing a rope. All the leverage happens in the primary. Cynthia Nixon got Andrew Cuomo to change his perspective on the IDC, to come out for a marijuana legalization, and a host of other smaller little moves that he made that were a function of the pressure that she was putting on. But Andrew Cuomo knows that AOC, who won her primary with 25,000 votes, let's keep in mind, does not have the ability to sink him who got 1 million votes in the primary.
No, it would be basically just hurting herself.
Oh, but also,
Exactly.
She doesn't have the power to hurt him. She doesn't really have the power to help him, I don't think. She has the power to help herself a little bit, though.
Exactly.
No, it wouldn't help
Hence
anybody.
all the constituents who voted for her.
Exactly.
And in addition to that, say you even had this third party scenario somehow came true, third parties always govern in coalition. So even this dynamic of moral purity that you somehow think will magically be bestowed upon you if you didn't deal with the Democratic Party as like some type of metaphysical entity will always happen, because then you're in a European scenario and you're the left party and you got 5% of the vote and you're going to build a coalition with who? Same dynamic. You're going to go into partnership with somebody that you don't like. That's literally how it works. It's completely inescapable if you're talking about electoral politics. And the second point, I just want to add really brief to the button. I have been looking at, Brazil a lot recently, obviously, and one of the things that the right used in Brazil was they actually leveraged anti-austerity protests in 2013 and sort of migrated it to a broader, quote unquote, like anti-corruption politics, which was weaponized to only focus on left parties. So this also like free floating, like
Drain the swamp,
morality, the fucking corruption. We already have a case study where it is literally a useful tool of a fascist movement in Brazil.
People ask me why you think this creates apathy and disempowers the left. Because if you follow this line of thinking to its logical conclusion, you are basically locking yourself in a basement. There is no, look, it's one thing to say, ugh, I had to watch AOC say that she was going to vote for Andrew Cuomo and support his candidacy in the general. It made me nauseous.
We turned it into a comedy bit.
But I get why she's doing it. End of story. But when you basically say that any way that the left empowers itself through electoral politics is inherently corrupt and worth disdain and worth walking away from, an indication that nothing will ever good will happen, all you're doing is disempowering the left. That's all you're doing. You're doing nothing else. And it's really, really dangerous if it was to be, I'm not convinced that it's not dangerous now, frankly, in terms of inhibiting the left's ability to do anything. That's the problem with this. That's the problem with it. The analysis is, now, if this was on, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's saying something similar on, that doesn't have the TYT platform. It didn't have their subscriber base, built because they're, originally TYT comedy or whatever it is. Okay. No, I think it's perfectly legit, but I'm just saying, like, that's what makes it dangerous. That's why we comment on it. Because it disempowers the left as much as, the stuff that we see right-wingers saying does. In some instances, maybe more.
And at least for me, I'll tip the hat. I think it's also a shame because I do think, I think he's a talented guy. And I think at points he's expressed some good values about things. Bums me out, frankly.
So I have a slightly different take on this that still ends in calling Jimmy Dore an idiot.
I didn't call him an idiot.
Okay, my
That's
bad.
The point of not raising his name and not.
You did somehow imply you were siblings at the beginning of the segment, though. You didn't follow up on that. I was
no, not that
confused.
they were siblings, but we're in the same. Yeah, the same.
It's like Cain and Abel.
Right.
So
Cain and fucking Abel. Why does he have all the fucking good farmland? Fuck him.
So
fuck you at the farmland.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, just kidding. So I am very skeptical of voting in electoral politics as a route to progressive legislation directly. I think the way DSA participates in it is largely a base building project, and it has been somewhat successful so far. It's really too early to see if it's actually working the way we want it to. But I think AOC was a very good project for that. And I think like at least signs point to some good things happening from it. But it's just not a very interesting question to me at this point. Like whether or not you vote, like it's kind of ridiculous. Like the way I approach voting is it can't hurt and it might help, you know, like we got to do it, even though we really need to focus on other things too, like mostly on other things. But it's weird for me to see somebody who claims to be on the far left to be that obsessed with voting in either direction. And I think
this isn't even
speaks to a lack of class analysis on Jimmy Dore's part, maybe a lack of strategy. I don't know. Also, we do have things that we criticize her for, right? Like the Boricua caucus in DSA wrote a letter to AOC because she's very good on Puerto Rico. And not quite as good on Israel. I think she just doesn't know that much about it. They wrote a letter to AOC explaining how these issues are connected and how Israel is also an example of colonialism and how the two-state solution is not a viable solution, right? They wrote this letter to her. She read it. It was a productive conversation. That's not what this is.
It's not even remotely like that.
Yeah,
no.
He's marshaling these things to argue that her project is doomed from the beginning.
Yeah, it's also,
that's the point.
A policy conversation.
Exactly.
It's totally different.
You're trying to shape certain policy. With him, he's simply saying there is no value to what she's doing. It's completely, it's basically undercutting the entire exercise and trying to force it into that narrative.
I really would, yeah. And I
and look, if you don't believe that there's any way to get progressive change by getting progressives elected and putting them into office, like what you think that a specific label on them is going to make a difference?
Well, I think that's actually where Jamie's point really actually underscores how totally incoherent it is. I think any analysis, at least in the current situation we're in, that doesn't somewhat center electoral politics to me isn't valid.
Most people don't vote.
That being said, like the idea that you're simultaneously running around talking about, like his perspective that he's trying to sort of point to, his whole show should just be about like street actions and civil disobedience and other forms of outside of electoral organizing. Because if you have a fatalistic view of Democrats, no matter what happens, which is obviously the brand, then the other thing is, okay, yeah, sure, let's throw a few votes for some irrelevant party that does nothing, which I'm sorry, that is what the Green Party is. And I don't even see him doing that, at least in the things that we see. I just see him being like, see, this is why AOC is actually bad. See, this is why you shouldn't actually be excited about the first, African-American woman that could be governor of Georgia who actually has a legit, solid center-left record. I just hear it's inevitable. It will never work. And by the way, did you see that Rachel Maddow said this thing? And it's anti-politics.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. If you want like an internally coherent vision for extra electoral models of change, listen to any anarchist podcast. It's Going Down is a really good one. Occasionally, my show. I don't want to plug it outside the plug time, but
Street Fight Radio.
Street Fight. Excellent. Not this. It's not this.
I mean, the people most skeptical of electoral politics should be the ones who know not to get caught up in this dumb bullshit.
Right. But he's not skeptical of electoral politics.
No, I know. He's an idiot.
No, he's a...
I
was going to add another point, but Matt did a button.
I think we got tricked into doing it so Sam didn't have to, is what just happened.
Well, it's basically like she didn't pick that completely pointless fight that would cost her political capital.
Right, of course.
But also,
but if you have a different name behind your on your ballot, if it says green, all rules of political coalition building and building power just completely fall away. You won't have to. You're just going to operate.
Hence back to the in Europe.
Right,
you go into coalition argument.
Exactly.
And ironically, for the Green Party specifically, in that process in Europe, it's actually morphed from like a hippie kind of lefty party to actually a very centrist kind of like pro-market eco one in a lot of places, which is interesting.